All right, so how did you get on with that challenge? Well, if you manage to style your website to look more or less like what we've got here, then you win. Ding, 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 ding. But if you struggled or if there was anything that was unclear, then I'm going to walk you through the solution so that you can do it along with me. Now, you can see that to turn this into this, there's still a little bit of work that we have to do in terms of styling. And the first thing is to change the call to action section to a different background color. So let's go ahead and do that now. So you can see that we've got this call to action or CTA section, and this is the ID that we can use to target that section. So if we scroll all the way down, but just before the media queries, we can add in a new section called the CTA section. And I'm going to comment it out, and this is our new section. Now I'm going to target the CTA ID, and I'm going to change the background color to that pinkish red color that we had before, which is FF4C68. So let's hit save and check it out. All right, looks good. Now we mentioned previously that whenever our background is colored, we want the text to be white and not black because it doesn't look contrasty enough. So let's go ahead and add some text color, and we're going to make it FFF. And now we have white text instead of black text. Now, currently, our content of the section is pretty much stuck to the left and the top and the bottom, and it's all too squished together. So let's give this section some padding like what we've done for all the previous sections. So we're going to use the same amount of padding as we had in, say, the carousel or in the features section, which is 7% top and bottom and 15% left and right. So now we got a little bit of padding. Looking nice, right? So the next thing that you might want to address is the heading. It's far too small for a call to action. I mean, as a call to action, you want to grab people's attention, right? Not be like an afterthought. So let's go ahead and change the style of that heading. So we've got an H3 here, but you can see we've already styled the H3 for the feature titles up here. So we can't really override this. So what do? Let's give it a custom class. Now the class I'm going to give it is CTA heading, and I'm just going to copy that over to here so that I can target it down here. CTA heading, and remember this is a class, whereas this is an ID. So I know I'm getting repetitive, but it's really important don't mess this up. All right, so now we've got our CTA heading, and we want to change our font family to probably the heaviest Montserrat that we can find, which is Montserrat Black. And this is the same font as the one that we've got up here as our heading. So Montserrat Black, and also we're going to change the font size to maybe 3.5 rem and the line height to 1.5. So let's hit save, let's refresh, massive call to action. Looks pretty good. So you'll notice that this looks very awkward being left aligned. So let's go ahead and fix that and go into the parent section and change text align inside the parent container to be center. And now we have centered items and centered text. Next, what's the next thing that looks weird? Well, the download buttons look pretty weird. So let's apply some Bootstrap styles. So let's add a class and let's give it the BTN style, and then BTN large, then BTN dark. And then we will just simply copy and paste this icon from up here, which is the Apple icon. And we're going to put it over here. And then again, I'm going to copy the Google Play icon. Now, of course, you can go on to Font Awesome and get all of this fresh, but it's exactly the same. So why not just reuse the code that we've already got? So now let's hit save, and let's add a class to the second button. And this again is going to be BTN, BTN large, BTN light. So hit save and refresh. Nice. We've got some nice buttons. Now, they're a little bit too close to each other and too close to the heading, so we need to give it some custom CSS styles. Now, you would have noticed that we've already applied some styles up at the top to give it a nice amount of separation and a bit of margin away from anything else. So, what if we just borrowed the class that we used up here, which was download button, and we simply straight up just applied it over here as is. Now let's hit save, refresh, and that looks pretty good. So now we're pretty much done with the CTA section. All we have is the footer that's left. So the footer, of course, again needs a whole load of padding, and we're going to use the same amount of padding as we had before to give the content the same amount of separation from the edges. So let's go ahead and check that we've got the footer with an ID called footer. So we can target it down here, and I'm just going to add the footer section comment. And then I'm going to target the footer ID, and I'm going to give it a padding of, you got it, 7% and 15%. All right, so we now actually have a footer, which is pretty sweet. Again, content needs to be centered, so let's add text align center, centering our text. And finally, we need to add some social icons from Font Awesome. So let's head over to Font Awesome/icons, and we're going to grab Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and envelope. All right, nice. So let's copy Facebook and put it in here into the footer. Then next one is Twitter. All right, next one is Instagram. And finally, our mailing option. All right, cool. So now let's refresh our website, and we now have icons. Pretty cool. Now, the icons are a little bit too close to each other at the moment, so we need a little bit of margin around each of them just to give it a bit of separation and not look so bunched up, and it'll be difficult to click on individual ones at the moment. So let's give each of these icons another class. So I'm holding down the option button to engage the Sublime like selection, and I'm going to call this social icon. All right. So now I can go into my styles.css and I can target the social icon and give it a margin of, say, 20 pixel top and bottom, 10 pixels left and right. All right, now let's hit refresh, and sweet, we have a footer. Now, if you look through your website, this is a beauty of a startup website. You could probably launch Tindog right now and start using this beautiful website. It does not look out of place compared to any of the other startup websites that you see these days. So I think we did a pretty good job. Now, just to finish off, the last thing I want to enable is to make these navigation buttons work. And I want to show you why it is that we gave each section an ID. So one of the things that you can do is you can use a href that's not a URL and it's not a page, but it's an ID. So because IDs are unique, then what you can do here in the href for that button, so all the way at the top here, in the button for contact, you see that we left the href for the anchor tag blank. But what I'm going to put here now is I'm going to put in the ID. So remember, IDs have to start with the pound sign. So you can see that for our footer section, we've got an ID that's unique called footer. So if I head back to that anchor tag where I've got the href, if I want to target that section, all I have to do is just to put in the pound sign to say that this is an ID for an href, and then put in the name of the ID, which is footer. And now if you hit save and refresh, then if I click on contact, it will scroll all the way down to the footer section where the user can contact me. So let's go ahead and put in the other ones for pricing. So pricing was called pricing. Okay, that's easy. So we're going to put in hashtag or # pricing, and then download is of course going to be the CTA section, call to action. So let's hit save and refresh. And now if we click on pricing, goes to pricing, download goes to download, and it's pretty cool. So this is one of the reasons why you would want to use IDs sparingly, because they can be really useful when you're trying to set up the navigation of your website. And if you take a look at GitHub and if you scroll through the documentation, you can see that each of their headings have a ID. So if I right click on this and I hit inspect, you can see that this one has an ID of product features. So you can see that this is the URL of the web page. And if you put in that #, which stands for, of course, go to this particular ID, and then you put in the name of the heading, then it navigates you straight there. So this works in the URL level as well as in the href. So that's yet another reason for why sometimes you see people use IDs across their web pages. So in the next lesson, we're going to be tidying up this mess that we've made around here in our CSS file. You might have noticed along the way that there's been a lot of code duplication. And remember that as a programmer, we're always trying to stay dry, right? Do not repeat yourself. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at why we need to refactor our code on a regular basis and what is the best way of doing that in our case. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson.